It's been over 6 years since we lost Malcolm James McCormick, better known as Mac Miller, but his voice refuses to fade. This January, his estate is giving us Balloonerism, an unreleased album recorded during his prolific 2014 Faces era, featuring collaborations with SZA and even his dark alter ego, Delusional Thomas. The project is poised to remind us why Mac's artistry still hits so hard, but why is his music so deeply impactful? Why does his legacy loom large over hip-hop and beyond? And should we even feel good about a posthumous release? Let's dive in. Mac Miller's music didn't just follow trends, it created moments that stuck to your ribs. From day one, Mac was all about making music that hit people where it mattered, in their own messy lives. Sure, he started as the frat rap poster boy with tracks about partying and carefree antics, but even then his charisma was undeniable. He knew how to capture the essence of youthful chaos and make it fun, something kids in Blue Slide Park did for sure. Critics might have dismissed his early work as shallow, but fans saw something else, an artist evolving right in front of them, and evolve he did. By 2012, Mac was flipping the script with Macadelic. It was a project dripping with introspection and new sonic textures. That tape was like a neon sign screaming, "I'm not here to play it safe." He leaned into vulnerability and experimentation, shedding the frat boy label for good. From there, albums like Watching Movies with the Sound Off and Faces showcased his growth. His lyrics became windows into struggles with mental health addiction and heartbreak, and his beats, pure artistry. A kaleidoscope of jazz, funk, and psychedelic influences. He wasn't just rapping anymore. He was building soundscapes that made you feel like you were living inside his head. Mac's gift was his ability to speak directly to listeners. His music invited you to reflect on your own story as a person. Fans could feel his honesty whether he was cracking a joke or spilling his soul. Tracks like Self-Care could resonate with anyone wrestling with their own demons. That's why his works lived on years after his passing. Mac's catalog is a guide for navigating the highs and lows of life, and he did it all with a smile that made you believe everything might just be okay. But let's backtrack a bit. To Pittsburgh in the early 2000s, where a kid named Malcolm is teaching himself every instrument he can find: piano, drums, guitar, bass. By 15, he wasn't hanging at parties like most teens. He was locked in his bedroom recording rhymes. His first mixtape dropped under the name Easy Mac. There wasn't much fanfare, and it was a little rough around the edges, but hey, greatness doesn't show up polished. When he was KIDS dropped, and suddenly Mac Miller was on everyone's playlist soundtracking house parties and road trips. Then came Blue Slide Park in 2011. The album was indie to its core, topping the Billboard 200 without major label backing. It was a flex for the little guy, a middle finger to the industry's gatekeepers. But the critics didn't have much love for Mac's feel-good party vibes. Pitchfork gave it a savage 1.0, calling it frat rap fluff, and a crushingly bland and intolerable version of Wiz Khalifa. That same Pitchfork review reinforced Mac's image as a frat rapper, whose whiteness lent itself to popularity among white frat boys who had a history of throwing keggers and listening to Jurassic 5 or the Yin Yang Twins. But Miller responded to that criticism with Macadelic in 2012. It was trippy introspective, and a full-on pivot from the beer pong anthems. Mac was finding his voice, and it was starting to resonate. By the time Watching Movies with the Sound Off dropped in 2013, he wasn't just a rapper, he was a creative powerhouse, collaborating with Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler the Creator Mac Dove headfirst into uncharted territory. Fans and critics alike started whispering, this guy might actually be a genius. And then there was Faces, 2014, a chaotic masterpiece that turned his addiction struggles into art. Tracks like Diablo showed Mac's lyrical evolution, while the haunting grand finale hinted at the darkness he was fighting. He wasn't holding back, he was inviting listeners into his world, flaws and all. Mac's rise wasn't just about albums, it was about evolution. He went from a suburban kid with a dream to an artist who demanded respect. By the time he dropped Go ODAM and The Divine Feminine, Mac Miller wasn't just making music, he was carving out a legacy. Mac Miller wasn't afraid to bear it all, and that's what made him so real. His music was like a diary, unfiltered, raw, and sometimes messy. Tracks like Self-Care weren't just songs, they were lifelines. He rapped about battling addiction, feeling lost, and searching for peace. Mac let his fans see the cracks in the surface, and that vulnerability made his music hit harder than most. But the road wasn't smooth. By the time Faces came out in 2014, it was clear Mac was struggling. That mixtape? Equal parts brilliance and chaos. It captured the highs and lows of a guy living on the edge. Grand Finale felt eerily like a goodbye letter, but Mac always managed to bring it back to hope. Even in the darkness, there was light, a belief that things could get better. In 2018, Swimming dropped, and it felt like Mac was figuring it out. The album was soulful, jazzy, and introspective. It was the sound of a man trying to heal, trying to move forward. Tracks like Come Back to Earth and Ladders showcased his growth not just as an artist, but as a person. Fans and critics agreed, this was Mac at his best, but behind the music, the weight of fame, addiction, and heartbreak was heavy. On September 7, 2018, Mac passed away from an accidental overdose at just 26. It was a gut punch, not just to his fans, but to the entire music industry. The kid who made us laugh, cry, and feel seen was gone. Tributes poured in from artists like Kendrick Lamar and Thundercat. Fans gathered at Blue Slide Park in Pittsburgh to honor him. The loss was personal because Mac had made it personal. He didn't just share his music, he shared his life. And in doing so, he became a voice for anyone who's ever struggled to find their way. Mac's story ended too soon, but his music, that's forever. When it comes to posthumous albums, the line between homage and hustle can get blurry fast. Circles, released in 2020, was a masterclass in how to do it right. The album felt like a seamless continuation of Mac's creative journey, thanks to the meticulous work of producer John Bryan. Bryan had been collaborating closely with Mac before his passing, and his care in finishing the album showed. Tracks like Good News and Once a Day felt heartbreakingly intimate, almost like Mac was still speaking directly to us. But not all posthumous releases hit the same way. The music industry has a history of milking an artist's legacy for profit, often at the expense of their artistic integrity. Tupac's endless stream of posthumous albums was cool at first, but eventually it felt like he had more projects dead than alive. And don't get me started on hologram tours. Turning someone's legacy into a literal ghost act can be creepy to say the least. So where does Balloonerism fit into this landscape? Recorded during Mac's Faces era, the album is shaping up to be more than just a cash grab. Mac's estate has been careful about his posthumous releases, only putting out projects they believe align with his vision. Balloonerism is packed with the same experimental spirit that defined Mac's later work. Still, the ethics of posthumous releases remain tricky. Would Mac have wanted this music out there? It's impossible to say for sure. But if Balloonerism is handled with the same care as Circles, it might just serve as another chapter in Mac's story. Ultimately, the goal should be to honor the artist's legacy, not exploit it. Done right, a posthumous album can be a final gift to fans and a way to keep an artist's spirit alive. Done wrong, and it's just another sad reminder of how the industry can turn art into a commodity. And finally, let's talk about Balloonerism and what makes it a potential standout in Mac Miller's already stacked discography. This isn't just another dusty collection of outtakes. It's an album rooted in one of Mac's most creatively untamed periods, the Faces era. Back in 2014, Mac was a genre-blurring mad scientist pulling together jazz, hip-hop, psychedelia, and whatever else felt right. That spirit is alive in Balloonerism, which early leaks suggest is as eclectic and boundary-pushing as anything he's done. The album's collaborators give it even more weight. SZA's hopped onto one track while Mac's alter ego Delusional Thomas is back for some off-kilter bars. It's the kind of lineup that screams, only Mac could pull this off. And let's not forget the production. Mac's fingerprints are all over this project, but the heavy lifting was done by a tight-knit group of trusted collaborators who knew exactly how to honor his vision without diluting his essence. What sets Balloonerism apart is its cohesion. Despite being recorded nearly a decade ago, the album feels timely, a testament to Mac's forward-thinking approach. Tracks like $5 Pony Rides and DJ's Chord Organ reportedly play like surreal dreamscapes, while others dig deep into the vulnerability and introspection that defined his later work. It's this balance of aw shucks and raw emotion that keeps Mac's music so resonant. The big question, though, is whether this is the album Mac would have wanted us to hear. From what's been shared, it seems like Balloonerism was a project he cared about, but never got to fully finish. That leaves its final form in the hands of his estate and collaborators. But if Circles is any indication, they're more than capable of doing right by him. In the end, Balloonerism feels less like a posthumous cash grab and more like a love letter to the creative chaos that made Mac Miller an icon. It's a reminder that even in the moments we didn't get to see, Mac was always pushing boundaries and pouring his soul into his craft. And for fans, that's all we could ever ask for. Thanks for watching.